Time goes by so slowly, and time.
From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf, and I'm your host for tonight's show. Sitting right alongside me is my co-host, Michael Murburg.
Hi, Lou. Nice to be here.
Hey, you're looking sporty tonight with your hair down, all Mod Squad and everything.
Yeah, just call me Lincoln Head.
And we have our special guest DJ tonight. How's it going, brother?
Pretty good. How are you all doing?
Good. Now you here on break?
Yep. Just taking an online class so I can be here.
One of those hardworking college boys. Good to see you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. The imho.love show is, in my humble opinion, .love, and that's what it's all about, man. And we talk about a variety of topics. We talk about human-initiated contact experiences, which we reach out to our extraterrestrial families through prayer and meditation and just offering the love and the innocence we have in our hearts so they may recognize it and return it, and they do. And we talk about that, which is that's a big, deep topic with a million dimensions. And we've been covering let's just call it classic current news.
And a history lesson on why CE5 and human-initiated contact is so important, and the basis of the evil in the world that is human in nature and egoic. And we try to purvey the promise that contact will bring to mankind as a consequence of this. We're no longer going to be slaves.
Exactly. And what you and I believe or look forward to, hope it happens in our lifetime, we will have direct communication with our extraterrestrial family somehow. Nobody knows.
Well, yeah, Custom McCrace was on this week on the podcast, and he's saying, "Hey, look, the prime directive is now ex nihilo, out of nothing. It's no longer applicable. So, ET, the Star Nations are going to step it up, and we've hit the tipping point, and it looks like we are." So,
well, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners notice this too. The very vibration of the world has changed. It's the vibration on the street is a lot more erratic than it used to be. I think people are kind of getting a little unsettled. And of course, this is all orchestrated by the government and the banks and your corporations. They want us to act and perform and purchase and work in a certain pattern. So they've designed this grand scheme to keep us running through this maze.
And we don't even know it. Most of humanity doesn't realize how it's happened, why it's happened, or that they're being consummately manipulated by moneyed interests that have controlled the world for a good at least Western civilization for about 2,000 years, and continue to control us in the same way today. But we get so blinded by ego and materialism that we don't see what's going on, nor do we care.
I got to tell you, they are brilliant marketers in every stretch of the imagination. I have never, that television, that light that's blinking in everybody's house, now all the internet screens, your phone. They say the average person touches their cell phone 2,000 to 4,000 times a day, making little strokes and this and that and thumbing thumbing it through life. And now, by the way, folks, in case you haven't heard, Florida has passed a no texting law while you're driving. They'll be handing out citations as of Janvier, but until then, you may get away with a warning. I got to tell you, man, even in my own life, because during the day I'm rolling, man. I'm talking, I'm going, I'm checking, I'm moving, I'm buying, I'm selling. That's going to be a bit of a burden, but I got to figure out a way to do it because I've never had an incident, but I certainly can see how it can happen. You get that wrong, crazy text in the middle of the day, you get real distracted. I mean, if you're lucky, you take down a row of garbage cans in a mailbox. If you're not lucky, way worse things can happen. So it's a good thing, but also too, another invasion of privacy. Now our militaristic police people can just stick their head in your car for any particular reason.
And then get you out and then stick their hand down your crack, which is another Florida case. That's legal. That constitutes a legal search.
Really? Putting a hand in your butt crack?
Yeah.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a good boy. And these things really don't happen to me. So, but I can imagine the perils of those that it does. So just be good. But what we're talking about the last several weeks has been the existence of the Federal Reserve, which of course is not a government entity as it's presented. It is a bank that lends money to our government minutely. Is that a word? Minutely?
By the second.
By the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just this giant sow, multi-breasted, just big seething money machine that it's too complicated to really understand in its fullest. So I try to reduce it down to bite-sized pieces. We got to go out and chase these tokens, and we trade them for goods and services. And if you keep running through the pre-described maze and don't get frisked on the side of the road with your hand in your butt crack very often, you can have a climate-controlled life. You can drive a car with shiny wheels, and you can have food at arm's reach. But consequently, sometimes that leaves a lot of people a little dry. There's not quite enough life for them. And that's one of the things Michael and I talk about often is if you're in a really crappy job and you ain't digging it and life isn't any fun and you're depressed and you're surrounded by grouchy, horrible people.
There must be a bank involved.
To stick with a thread, yes, indeed. But what I was going to say is, this is a short life, and I've noticed it a lot more the last several years in my life. Don't be afraid to make a change, because you may perceive a change as bad, but a change also has effects that ripple through your life, especially if you have a crappy job. If you really don't like your job and you hate going there and it bums you out and all you're doing it for is the digits, find something of equal digits and change your surroundings. Don't waste your life years on end toiling away with dampened atmospheres full of pain and ego and gossip and crap. Just get away from it, man. Improve your vibration, and your life will seem happier anyway. It'll seem that way, and it probably is.
So I'm sure it is. Life is tough enough without making it hard on yourself.
But yeah, so over these, and what Michael and I were speaking of is that sometimes all these things that are happening to us, running through this maze, and of course everybody's got their hand out along the way. Everything is taxed. Everybody just wants to touch your money, no matter where you go. Constantly reminded of things. I literally had one of those where my cell phone was sitting on at the table, and I mentioned something, and next thing I know, when I turned my cell phone back on, I was talking about garden buildings. I never talk about garden buildings, the kind where you park your lawnmower and all that. I open up my phone, boom, here's like 3 ads for garden buildings. What are those called? Outhouses? No.
Storage sheds.
Sheds.
Storage sheds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, your phone is listening all the time.
Yeah, I like that company called Bullshed. I think that's a great name. Bullshed. Yeah, get it? I didn't. Hey,
Okay,
hey,
you're
we're all
good.
good.
You're good.
We're all good.
Keep rolling.
Yeah. Watch the FCC just barge in, machine guns drawn. But anyway, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We've been covering the history of the Federal Reserve, and we're at Napoleon.
Yeah, it's actually the World Banking Cartel.
The World Banking Cartel.
Right. The Federal Reserve is just a small part of it.
That's true. That's like a branch.
But it does run the U.S. economy, and it loans money to the United States government at an astronomical rate. We're already $140 billion in debt for the year, so we've got to borrow to get out of that debt. But last time we were talking, we left off at Waterloo, which was June 18th, 1815, where Nathan Rothschild cornered the market on British stocks by leaking false information that Napoleon had won the battle. And not many people understood that at the time, but Nathan Rothschild financed all the belligerents in the conflict. He financed England and Prussia and France, who fought against each other, and he made money on both sides, which continued throughout this time. And the same thing happened in World War I, the same thing happened in World War II, and it's still happening today.
I tell you what, man, the Zionists, love them, hate them, not know what they are, whatever. Those are some of the slickest deal makers ever. I mean, those guys, they get more mileage out of words than common people do.
Well, they've had centuries of trading money for power, and it's an amalgamating power in the wealth that they have. The Rothschild family hasn't gone anywhere. They're richer than ever. They have an estimated value of somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 trillion or more.
Yeah, I've heard more.
Yeah, I've heard as high as 300 trillion, but what is the world economy worth? So, I mean, holy cow, how much money can you own?
How much can you print? And because of that, I mean, one of his famous quotes is, I don't care who's in office, you let me run the banks, I'll run the country. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
You get lost on which Rothschild said that, but it's kind of like each Rothschild has like, for example, Nathan was like, if that damn United States doesn't renew our charter, we're going to march in with the army. And that's exactly what they did. And thank God Napoleon was around, because if he hadn't been fighting Napoleon, and the English hadn't been fighting Napoleon in Western Europe, they could have brought the full force of the English army to bear on the United States. They burned the White House. They took our capital.
Yes.
And, and then eventually they got beaten back.
Right.
Because there was a war on two fronts that they couldn't handle.
Jeez. They burned down the White House where was it at Philadelphia at that time?
No, it was Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And burned it to the ground.
Yeah, they burned it. I don't know if it to the ground, but it was a severe fire. They set it on fire. They marched right in, set it on fire.
And who did that?
This is the British during the War of 1812.
Okay.
And, when we left off with Napoleon and Waterloo, I didn't get to what, I said, like, people like Caesar and Napoleon, they get bad raps because what they do is they go against the organized power and money, and they end up losing. They end up getting killed, murdered, and destroyed, and then they get written badly into history.
Yes.
For example, you know who's responsible for building the Louvre?
Napoleon?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So, Napoleon's economic reform.
He was actually way cool and smart and genteel.
Right. Didn't necessarily have to go to war, but he was an economic reformer. He strengthened the French money and development of new industries there, which was contrary to the Rothschilds Bank of England. They would loan money at low interest rates. They own the French owned their own bank. They vastly upgraded the infrastructure under Napoleon, as well in France and in Europe as well. Built canals, bridges, harbors, public buildings, the Louvre Gallery, instituted the Imperial University, which was the first university in France. that dealt with science and medicine. He made roads crossing the Alps. He created a system of laws known as the Napoleonic Code, which is still the law today and the law in Louisiana. And the Enlightenment flourished under Napoleon, even though he had a rough start. And new ideas flourished, and the arts and artisans did. And eventually, when he lost at Waterloo, he was exiled to the British island of St. Helena here in the South Atlantic. And at the age of 51, even though he was in great health at the time he was taken into captivity, on May 5th, 1821, he dies of
heart attack.
Cyanide poisoning.
Cyanide
poisoning and chronic arsenic intoxication. So, I mean, how does that happen? Cyanide comes out again in Zyklon B with the concentration camp. So it's like, holy cow, the whole thing's being manipulated.
Sure.
And the same poisons come up, the same people come up, the same patterns of money creation come up, the same murders come up. I mean, they killed Napoleon, they killed Caesar. They killed John Kennedy. I mean, there's nobody who stands up to them that doesn't end up getting killed.
Exactly true. And I think just by the popularity of information these days, all this stuff is being discussed. It was very hush hush. I mean, you used to say stuff like this, people would,
you're a conspiracy theorist.
Shushed you right down. Yeah. And our friend Kat Carroll says you're a conspiracy analyst, which is a much better phrase.
Yeah, I know I'm a factual analyst, and whatever you want to put on it is fine. But I'm talking about facts here, and there's no conspiracy involved. Thank you, Kat, though. But yeah,
it's good phraseology, and we have to watch our phraseology because that's the manipulation that goes on. The news, the big 5 or big 7 news media corporations that literally create every word that you hear and see and feel. They want you to feel it as well. They've all got they all deliver the same story, just in different flavors. There's a Fox flavor, there's an MSNBC flavor, all the same news, but just, making you feel right because that's the station you tuned into. And finding your handy television adversary, because you can look across the aisle and they're watching that. I know who they are because they watch that. That's their channel. Those people, they think that way because they follow that channel. And really, think about it. What a mastermind manipulation that is. There are literally thousands and thousands of wonderful free thinking people that just get in line and ride the bus. And, that's the other thing that I like to talk about all the time too. If you have desires in your heart, in your mind, things that you want to do, go do them. Really, there's really nothing stopping you. And I'm sure there's extenuating circumstances, and we can talk about handicaps and situations. And of course, there are things that may prohibit people from moving on. But the other side of it is not really. You can put that energy in place through thought and prayer and understanding and forgiveness and being kind to yourself and making corrections. I mean, if you have issues in your life, if you have trouble, keeping the truth, then you need to work on that. If you have trouble paying your bills, you need to work on that. You need to move the vibrations of your world, your life, your existence into a more pliable way, because that's the way you want to spend your time. You don't know what your last day is. I mean, some of us vanish suddenly. Some of us get a good long run, but you don't know. That's why I'm saying don't waste any time. And what we feel as though is sometimes people get discouraged because they can't understand all the stuff that's happening around them. And Michael is just a wonderful researcher, and he finds the story behind the story. We've been told all our lives, to the victor go To the victor goes the information, and it's dispensed as they see it and as they want it presented. Well, consequently, there's always 2 or 3 or 4 sides to every story. And what we've been fed through the, Carnegie financed college system, we have found people that know how to run through this system of information gathering and getting degreed and making yourself ready for a career in another orchestrated industry. Every once in a while, there's somebody that's just going, no, that I can't. And I know a couple of young men in my life that, their relation, their blood, and I see them making wonderful moves, others making foolish moves. But, is it that old thing? Is it the path of excess leads to the palace of knowledge? Do you take that trip? Or do you just get in line, start running through the maze, make something, comfortable for yourself? But anyway, and part of that is because all of our money is being manipulated by the Federal Reserve System. It comes, it goes, it comes and goes. So what's the next big manipulation here, Michael?
Well, it's not only the money, but the politics that goes along with it. And I'll get into that, explaining that in a little bit. But, when you're talking about conspiracy from a legal standpoint, you're talking about a loose confederation of people with a target goal. They don't have to know each other. They don't have to know what each other's doing. But as long as they have the common goal in mind and they work as a confederated unit towards that goal,
Mm-hmm.
then that is a crime.
Yes.
If it's a criminal act. And conspiracies are not really difficult to prove.
Right.
All you got to do is show that, these guys are doing the same thing and it's all involved. It's loose, but nonetheless, it's not improvable or unprovable or improbable. So I guess last time we finished up with Napoleon, but let's get back into the United States again.
Okay. We're back in the country.
Back in the country. Back in 1691, Massachusetts created a colonial script, and the other colonies did the same thing. There was stable economic growth. Land was selling. Immigration was happening. Tobacco, cotton, furs. It was all moving. When Ben Franklin was asked, what the success of the colonies was based on in 1764, he said, it's based on we have a currency that doesn't charge interest or exorbitant interest rates on the money loaned. So low interest rates was driving the American economy back then. Then in 1764, England passes the currency bill and causes the colonial collapse of 1765, and that ends in the Stamp Act. But we had an unemployment rate here in this country just prior to the 1776 of 50%. And a collapsed economy.
50% unemployment.
50% unemployment.
Oh,
think about it,
man.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
That's too many men hanging around.
Yeah, and then in May 1775, the Second Continental Congress determines you've heard the statement, not worth a continental. Well, as a kid, I learned that in grammar school history and then in high school history, but you don't know why it was worthless. And the reason it was worthless is because between 1775 and 1780, there was so much counterfeit money produced by the Bank of England and flooded into the United States that the value of the Continental in 5 years went to 2.5% of its value.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah, and in a few years later, when they actually started keeping statistics on this,
they crushed it.
They did.
They crushed it.
But they did the same thing to France. England in 1790 had 400 workmen in 17 factories printing the assignat, the official French currency at the time, and bringing it to France and flooding France with it to destroy their economy. That was the Rothschilds and the Bank of England in 1790.
Man, what we've discovered here is this banking system, this Zionist-based Rothschild banking system that we all are under. There's none of us that aren't under it. what they do is with their bank, with their money, they go establish a country. They start a country. They buy a flag and then they bring it somewhere. And then they start working the politicians. And then the politicians start getting bought because the bank has so much money, it can make whatever it wants to happen. Everybody has a price. That's really sad, but it's true. And so as all these deals are being made, everything that we're experiencing right now is just on a economic side, it's just the perpetuation of the movement of the bank and the manipulation of it, which each one of us bounces off of this thing in a particular way.
And it's the misery it causes, and it's the reason we don't have 0 point energy. It's the reason that we don't have disclosure, because by controlling all this, they can control us and they can milk us for everything that we are worth. Yes. They will squeeze us until there's no blood left. You mentioned as part of what I'm talking about here, Alexander Hamilton, and under Washington, brought in the Bank of the United States, which was the Rothschild Bank, first bank in the United States. Adams, Jefferson, and Madison, the three greatest minds of the Revolutionary period, were absolutely opposed to it. It comes in, and in 1792, the Bank of the U.S. ended up flooding the market with cheap loans, and then they called in the loans to crash the economy. And they did it in such a way so that at the time they did it, that the U.S. government was in debt to them. And the government, which had a 25% share in the Bank of the United States, ended up selling its 25% share to the other shareholders in the bank. So it became 100% privately owned, and 75% of the shareholders were foreigners. So 75% of the national bank's ownership were people who are manipulating money and charging exorbitant rates and calling in loans, not only for the United States, but for every human being that took out a debt with them.
My God, it's so big and it's so diabolical. It's a scheme that literally is of such epic proportion. You can't fully get your head around it. I mean, all I can really do with this is identify the shadows that it casts. From what I felt, and economies are strange, man, especially to a lot of people. Like I've had people say, "Oh, the economy's horrible. Everything's bad. And I got plenty of money in my pocket." And then I've had other people, "Oh, we're under some of the greatest prosperity ever, and I can't pay my bills."
Well, and that's just a tangential side of this all. The big thing is money created out of nothing that's loaned to the government by private banking sources is like giving kid crack cocaine.
Yeah.
By 1811, when the charter for the Bank of the United States came up, they caught them concealing their profits.
Oh.
Yeah. The same thing's happening today. The Fed doesn't get properly audited, so you just never know where the money's going.
Yeah.
So they catch the bank concealing profits. And as bad as that was, it was the charter was defeated in Congress by a vote of 65 to 64, with 64 knowing that the bank was doing what they were doing, and it was saved by Jefferson, who turned the 65 to 64 votes in favor of not renewing the bank charter, which brought us into the invasion of the War of 1812.
Jesus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the imho.love show. We've got to play some ads and play some mainstream news for you. But when you get tired of that, which will be quickly, come on back. We'll be gone about 6 minutes. Lou Angelwolf, Michael Murburg, imho.love.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyr Hills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
Trump challenges impeachment. Spacey charge dropped. I'm Barbara Cusack. President Trump took a swipe at an impeachment resolution pushed by House Democrat Al Green that failed to get the votes needed. Trump told a rally in North Carolina,
"The resolution, how stupid is that on impeachment?"
Correspondent Caitlin Collins says the president's supporters stand behind him as Trump says he has no regrets about his tweets that 4 Democratic freshman congresswomen should go back to their home countries, despite the fact they are all citizens.
President's supporters that we spoke with said they did not see those attacks as racist at all. They said actually they agreed with the president and his sentiment that if you don't love the United States, you should go home.
Massachusetts prosecutors are dropping the sexual assault case against former House of Cards actor Kevin Spacey, as correspondent Joe Ramsey tells us.
Officials say the case cannot go on after the alleged victim invoked his self-incriminating right to testify earlier this month. The former House of Cards star was accused of sexually assaulting an 18-year-old man in 2016 at a Nantucket bar and charged with felony indecent assault and battery. Kevin Spacey's lawyers had accused the man of deleting text messages that would support the actor's defense.
After a 19-year legal struggle, 3 former makers of lead paint have agreed to a $305 million settlement with California county and city governments to mitigate poisoning dangers that are still present in old housing. The paint companies did not admit any wrongdoing under the settlement agreement. Well, a heat wave has taken hold across the U.S. with high temperatures and humidity making for oppressive conditions through the weekend. Meteorologist Tom Sater says there won't be any relief in sight come nightfall either.
We could see over 100 temperatures broken because the temperature won't drop out of the 80s at night.
Forecasters indicate 51% of the lower 48 states are likely to see air temperatures reach or exceed 95 degrees during the next 7 days. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Driving is freedom. The freedom to keep moving, to control your destiny, and to choose your path. And now that freedom fits in the palm of your hand. It's called Ford Pass, the only app that gives you roadside assistance, Ford Pass rewards, and now when you buy or lease a new Ford, earn points you can use toward flexible complimentary maintenance that gives you, well, more freedom. Ford Pass, built to keep you moving, built Ford proud. Visit your participating Ford dealership to find out about getting flexible complimentary maintenance when you buy or lease a new Ford and sign up for rewards.
Roadside assistance is included for certain Ford owners and available to everyone for a per-service fee. Ford reserves the right to change program details without obligations. Visit your participating dealer or FordPassRewards.com for program rules and restrictions. Ford Pass, compatible with select smartphone platforms, is available via download.
If you would like to become a wholesale buyer of the premium quality longevity product that you hear about right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, for personal service, you can pick up the phone right now and call Lola at 727-441-3311. Again, that's Lola at 727-441-3311. Or for even faster service, log on to tantalkhealth.com. That's tantalkhealth.com. Here's to your health and longevity.
This is Patsy with a Z, inviting you to join me every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 11 o'clock for Joy on Paper, a program for writers and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. Each week, I interview best-selling authors, agents, and people in the publishing world. It's fun to know the story behind the books we all love, so listen in to Joy on Paper every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 11 a.m. right here on Tan Talk Radio Network.
There's only one place on the radio where golfers like you can turn for the best tips, interviews, product reviews, local tournaments, and everything golf talk. The Golf Show, guys.
Hey, join the Golf Show, guys, every Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's not just funny, it's informative, it's celebrities, and it's a lot of applause. It's the Golf Show, guys, Wednesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Go yard is a metaphor used in baseball, meaning to hit a home run. Life struggles can make you feel like you just struck out. It's times like these that we need a little batting practice to pick ourselves back up and get back in the game. Whether you are dealing with marital issues, drug addiction, rebellious teens, anxiety, depression, or just generally having a bad day, call Mama Mac. If life has you down 0-2, before you strike out, learn to go yard. Go yard with Mama Mac on this radio station, Thursdays, 6 o'clock.
Don't miss the Craft Beer Hour every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We'll bring you up to speed on craft beer events and festivals, local breweries, and interview the brains behind the brews. So grab a pint and listen to the Craft Beer Hour every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, and visit the website, thecraftbeerhour.com.
Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Marcia McAllister from Beacon of Hope Ministries. We want you to join us on Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock on this radio station for our 2-hour show, talking to you about the Word of God, giving you great contemporary music, some lively chat, and just some food for thought. You'll be encouraged to know how very much God loves you and how He has a plan for your life. Join us this coming Sunday at 3 o'clock on Living the Good Life.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's imho.love. Lou Angelwolf, Michael Murburg. We're here at fabulous Tan Talk Studios in sparkling Clearwater, Florida. We're in the central West Coast, for those of you who don't have a map. Of course, it's a sweltering Florida summer. Temperatures going into the feels like over 100 all the time. So it's nice and humid, although the iguanas and lizards rejoice. They love it like this. So, but here we are, folks. We're going to open up the phone lines for the second half of the show. The local number here is 727-441-3000. And if you like a toll-free number, which you're welcome to it, 866-826-1340. And, of course, you can always catch the show on tantalk1340.com. We got a live YouTube feed. I'm Lou Angelwolf. It's on the Facebook over here, and it's shared on several other formats. It's a great show. We love doing it. And we love telling you guys the other side of the news sometimes, or the less reported side. And it's all real research stuff. We're not just, copying and pasting stuff off the internet and pretending like we know something. It's good news. And even what we're trying to say is, even though everything kind of seems kind of crummy and weird and strange, and, you don't understand it, all in all, it's still good. If you're living in this day and age, and if you can hear my voice, and if you're sitting in a climate controlled room, and you've had food recently, and you have a source of income, whatever it is, man, you're living in, what is the top 10% of the world or something like that?
I don't know, but you're living pretty good.
Yeah.
Bad stuff happens. It's how you react to it that counts.
That's really true. And we've been talking about the Federal Reserve, but before we get into that, this 1 million person march, these people are going to storm Area 51 and demand to see, the aliens' panties or something. I don't know. Michael and I are pretty meditative about this topic. What do you think of 1 million people showing up at the gate at Area 51? How's that sound to you?
I hope they're toilet facilities. It's
when you want a Johnny Quick franchise.
It's symbolic, but absent the symbolic value, I don't see any value to it. There's nothing there they're going to be able to see, and it is a government institution, and you got to respect that. I mean, if you go over the fence, they may kill you.
They might.
I mean, yeah, we see what happens in Israel with Palestinians. I mean, why think we'd be any different with the governments that we're dealing with?
Well, here's the thing. Okay. Part of me doesn't even believe this story. I don't even believe it has any structure whatsoever. I think it's all words. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it went from 40,000 to 1 million in like
2 weeks.
Yeah, or less.
Or less.
It was
A week and a half? I
Yeah,
don't know.
maybe.
So anyway, but here's my dealio. This is not the way to do this. For one, when you make demands on your government and when you show up, I mean, it's not I get it, who they are is who they say they are, but they are the governing factor in this country right now. And if you go in there storming and thinking that you're going to just be all citizenry and you're going to just wear a bulletproof vest and just walk right in, it ain't going to happen, man. And I think what it's going to happen is if large crowds of people do gather there, I think Americans will get to experience some of our new crowd control devices that we've been saving up so diligently for. They have one thing, Michael. It's a low, very low tone.
Yeah, it makes you sick to your stomach. They've had it for 20 years. They just really haven't,
They don't get to use it.
Yeah.
They don't get to see. This is why I think the fix is in. This will let them get to use it. Okay, and they can have people, UFO enthusiasts, sprawl down on the ground, losing control of their bowels and vomiting, and you get less curious when you've lost control of your bowels, and your curiosity wanes when you're vomiting.
And it's a show of power all the way. I mean, from capital punishment on down to this, it's just a show of government power that we can do this and we will do this. So behave and shut up and go home.
Yeah. And here's the thing. What they're doing is they're trying to make an American Idol episode or take on this, because that ain't it. This is playing on so much bigger of a stage. And really, I mean, if you think about it, if beings from another planet want to make contact with us, they don't need, I mean, what they're looking for from us is the spirit of love and the spirit of innocence. That's what they want to commune with, because they've been dealing with warriors for centuries and they're tired of them. These warriors down here, they have such dumb little rules and they play with such dirty weapons, and they don't have the least understanding of humanity. They've been sold a bill of goods. They're under a spell. It's making evil reign and hurting the rest of us that just want to live peaceful, mellow lives. Okay.
Well, bringing us into the recent past of 1812 to 1819, it's a mere 200 years ago. The Rothschilds, after the British were repelled in the War of 1812, they decide, they were still angry. So what they end up doing, all right, is they end up financing the Shawnee and giving them arms and whatever they need to wage warfare on the western frontier to keep Americans from expanding westward. So they financed Tecumseh and the Shawnee, among other tribes, to kill Americans who wanted to, westward to hoe.
Whoa. That's amazing, man.
I mean, this should be like an HBO show, 400 years of servitude, the story of the Rothschild family.
Jeez. Okay, hey, we got a caller.
Yeah, we got Barry Hart on the line.
Hey, Barry Hart, our favorite mad scientist. How are you, brother?
I do well, Luke. You're too gracious. Hello, Michael. Nice to talk with you guys again.
Thanks for coming on.
I've been following your show here and the UFO thing, as you well know, and just wanted to bring a new slant to the discussion here. It's a scientific approach in some ways, many ways actually. To preface all of this, I have to talk about an experiment that's been done in many laboratories all over the earth. And they take basically a clear plexiglass rectangular box, and they vacuum out all the air and they put it inside of a magnetic field so nothing can get inside of it. It's absolutely positively empty.
Okay.
Then they can watch, and they watch it for hours and hours. And from time to time, a photon will appear inside for a second and then pop out of existence. And from nothing, absolutely nothing, from nothing, matter forms and then goes back into energy. Now, that's been done many, many times. It has something to do also with a theory they're working on, entanglement. But that's another field out there. But the fact remains that matter can appear and disappear in front of our eyes in our universe.
Yes.
That happens. It's regular.
Okay.
Now, I have forgotten the name, and I apologize for that. But about 3 weeks ago, on a radio show called Coast to Coast, there was a scientist on there who went down to the LIGO, that's the linear interferometer gravitational observatory in Livingston, Louisiana.
Okay.
And basically it's 2 tunnels parallel to the surface of the Earth. I think it's like 10 miles down underneath, so that it's not affected by sound. And it's meant to measure the gravitational waves from stars pulsing through the universe, because they believe that there is a medium. We talked about a medium in our universe, and they believe that it can hold gravitational waves. So they've detected them. While this scientist was there, he was talking with the director of the project there. He mentioned about a lot of different things. One of his major concerns was they noticed a gravitational shift when the Large Hadron Collider, that's CERN over in Switzerland.
Yes.
They noticed a gravitational shift when that collider was in high power. It doesn't always go to high power. Normally they're about 50%, 60%, 70% for their experiments.
Right.
Every once in a while they do experiments at high power. So he looked at the gravitational waves. Just coincidentally, actually was talking with his wife. She said, there's been a lot of sightings of UFOs here lately. He went back on his own. This is 20, 30, 40 hours of his own life. And he found that when the Large Hadron Collider was operating at 100%, the number of reported UFO sightings scaled off the map.
Wow.
So his theory is this, that since we know matter can appear and disappear from our universe, it is possible and very plausible now that the UFOs we see are from another dimension.
Yes.
And that when that large magnet is at 100% there, it more or less attracts them into our universe.
Mm-hmm.
For a second, they can spend it here, and then they disappear.
Sure.
That explains a lot of UFO sightings, because look at this. Of all of the pictures and everything out there, everyone's grainy. Nothing has sharp, clear edges flying in the sky. Nothing shows any kind of propulsion or anything. If they were from another universe or another dimension, then that would hold true. The erratic movement, not possible in our physical universe, possible in another universe, or because of atomic action reactions and stuff, also plausible there. Appearing and disappearing, popping in and out of existence, going away. So many different questions could be answered just by thinking in those particular ways there. I just thought it was interesting.
Very much so.
I sort of mentioned that to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there. There's so many possibilities, but when you consider that the closest exoplanet they found that might support life is 43 billion light years away from us.
Okay.
What kind of propulsion system would you have to get us here? Would you not be able to see it once it's in our atmosphere? What's going on? But if something were coming from another dimension, like right beside you two guys sitting at the table right now, there's a whole dimension inside there. Something
true.
could pop in and pop out. That would explain an awful lot about the sighting. And
sure.
I just wanted to put that information out there to share that. That's what I've heard, and I thought it was very interesting.
That's a beautiful observation, Barry, and thanks for sharing it with us, because, nobody knows absolutely for certain what is going on, but having a nice, strong scientific backing for such things, certainly, there's more and more truth out there, and thanks for calling in, and man, that's awesome. That's really something very deep to think about.
Well, I like what you guys are doing there, and don't stop it. Yeah, just keep right on going. And good job that you're doing there, Lou.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you now.
I'm watching you on the screen here.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
Okay.
All right,
Take
Barry.
care.
All right. Hey, that was Barry Hart. He's been our guest on the show before. Always inspiring and inspirational. He's another good researcher. He's come up with some really good stuff. Thank you, Barry.
Well, there are the UFO sightings after the first atomic bomb, especially the above ground testing that we did after World War II, also drew a spate of UFO sightings. And those of us that have actually seen craft and gotten up close enough, that visualization is not always granular.
Yeah.
You see the real deal; they're there. And, although the mass majority of craft involve energy and some sort of movement, but, he's got a good point. This is extra dimensional. It's interdimensional. It's interdensity. Light energy is involved. The potentials are enormous, if not infinite.
Yeah. And, it's that kind of thought that causes people like these. I don't know whether it's 200,000 or 1 million. These people want to march on Area 51. Whoever goes, I'd advise not going, to be honest with you. And there's one thing that's very unpredictable is a large crowd of people. You don't know what can happen in a large crowd of people. I mean, and that's something, especially if, you're talking about a military test site. They got the highest tech stuff out there, man. And those guys are itching to use it. I think bombs get stale. So that's why they start another conflict to get rid of the stale bombs. No new bombs till the stale ones are gone. So you got to...
They're like the milk carton has a little date on it, says sell by.
Exactly. So, okay. And that's what we've been studying with the banking system. What they do, or the Rothschild banks, what they do is they go in and they back every element of a war. They back 2, 3, 4, however many sides there are, however many advances, they're backing each division, each country.
They make money on the war, not the winner.
Yes. And consequently, we are often used as cannon fodder for these movements. We get drafted just because you're in the loop. They can pull you right out of your life and throw you into this hell like they did in Vietnam for many years.
And World War II and World War I. All of it was unnecessary.
And
absolutely unnecessary.
Making you feel good about going.
Yeah, and then you come back and you realize there's a massive disconnect, and what they told you the reasons you're going for are not the reasons why you were there, and you realize that when you get back.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I got a little personal story. My Uncle David was in World War II. In fact, the famous flag raising at Iwo Jima, he was not one of the guys. I'm not going to come off like that. But he was on that island at that very same time. And in fact, a couple weeks later, he stepped on a landmine and he lost the bottom part of his right leg. And so that got him an honorable discharge. He was a tough-ass Marine and a smart guy. And they flew him back and they boated him back and they got him back to the States. And finally, they did the clean amputation over there in Philadelphia at the medical hospital. And here's my Uncle Dave. I mean, looks like a movie star. I mean, steely blue eyes, big chiseled chin, in uniform, with his leg tucked up in a pinned up, the pant leg pinned up, on crutches, in the snow, trying to get back to New Jersey. He stood in the snow for 3 hours before somebody picked him up. And talk about, really an event that rocked the guy's world. He just could not believe everything he had just been through, and nobody had a ride for this guy for 3 hours in the snow, ice cold.
Without a leg,
leg pinned up. Hadn't even been fitted for a prosthetic yet. So I find it hard to believe that happened, but I guess it did, because from what I understand, he repeated the story several times in his life. And, back then they called it shell shocked, but now it's post traumatic stress disorder, and he carried it with him forever. Now it may have been that was the thing, the battle fatigue, all that stuff. But see, when you start paring all this stuff down, you look at all the experiences these people had, and it was all because of a banking move.
Right.
It was all a banking move, And where are we at now, Michael?
Well, Andrew Jackson, the hero of the Battle of New Orleans, becomes president of the United States, and in 1832 he ran on the position of no bank, and he lived up to his word. In 1836, there was no renewal of the Second Bank of the United States, and guess what happens to Andrew Jackson?
Assassination attempt?
Yeah, he survives assassination. You're getting good at this, Lou. You're learning. You could be a Rothschild someday. Okay, good.
I've got the home game.
You got the home game. So yeah, he survives an assassination attempt, and in between 1836 and for the next essentially 80 years, especially between 1841 and on up to the time we get to the Fed, the U.S. developed very well without the need for a central bank, and they used the greenback, which came into greenback dollar bill, which was issued by Abraham Lincoln in 1862 with gold and silver coinage that he had to do he issued paper to finance the Civil War, because the private banks wanted, how much they wanted to finance the Civil War, the Rothschild banks?
50%?
No, they were nice. Government rate was 24 to 36% per year.
Just like a buy here, pay here car lot.
So basically they say, hey, Lincoln, exactly. There's like, hey, Lincoln, you want financing? We'll give it to you. Se habla español, 24 to 36%. And he basically says, no, screw y'all. We're gonna use greenbacks. We're gonna use our own money. We're gonna print our own money and leave you guys out of the loop.
Yeah.
So what do they do to him?
Assassination attempt?
No, they did it. They got it.
Oh, they got him.
Yeah, the connection is pretty significant between John Wilkes Booth and the banking cartel. So, yeah, they got him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after he dies, eventually Grant becomes president, and he sells out to the Rothschilds with with something known as the Public Credit Act. Sounds good, doesn't it? The Public Credit Act.
It does sound good. Public and credit.
I'm public.
What could go wrong?
I'm public. I can get some credit. That'd be kind of cool, not having to pay much interest. And, but what that was it gave everybody who had purchased bonds face value in gold when they surrendered the bonds. And guess who cornered the market on American bonds?
This is a long shot. The Rothschilds?
They're very good, yes. And this is like in 1870 or so. $5 billion in bonds in 1870 was a bunch of money.
Oh my God! Yes,
right. And when
2 minutes,
an ounce of gold was $20. So do the math. So they end up getting $5 billion in gold from the United States Treasury.
Oh my God!
And they ended up doubling their money once again overnight. And they end up bribing Congress and cease the minting of silver coins. Nobody can understand why the silver coin was how the common man did his business.
Mm-hmm.
Gold was important, but you did your business in silver for the most part on a daily basis. And that crashed the economy. And between 1873 and 35 years on, the economy had 7 runs on the bank in 35 years, because the Rothschilds had manipulated Congress to take us off of the silver coin standard using gold only, and they crashed our economy, which brought us to the Fed.
The Fed in 1907, 1913.
1913. It begins in 1907, though.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Michael. We've been following the Federal Reserve maybe one more week. And that's just kind of our little basis, but there'll be stuff to talk about, and keep your kids away from Jeffrey Epstein, and have a good week, everybody. And if you're living here in Central Florida, just look for shady places to park. And thanks everybody listening all across the country. We had a lot of friends there, and we love you a lot. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back here next week. imho.love, 7:30 on Wednesdays, Tan Talk.
Love and peace.
Talk Radio Network.
There may come a time when a lass needs a lawyer, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. There may come a time when a hard-boiled employer thinks you're awful nice, but get that ice or else no dice. He's your guy when stocks are high, but beware when they start to descend. It's then that those louses go back to their spouses. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.